Hello, friend. Welcome to Shepherd My Heart. My name is Pamela, and I'm so glad you joined me today. Over the next 5 days, I'll be doing a series on storms and surrender, devotional journeys by sea. And today, for our first day, we'll be talking about Jonah's journey and God's redemption. We find this story in the book of Jonah, and I will be reading from the ESV version. And we'll start off with chapter 1 through 17, and verse 2:10. And it says, "Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah by the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me." But Jonah rose to flee from Tarshish, from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. But the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship threatened to break up. Then the mariners were afraid, and each cried out to his God. And they hurled the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. But Jonah had gone down into the inner part of the ship and had laid down and was fast asleep. So the captain came and said to him, "What do you mean, you sleeper? Arise, call out to your God. Perhaps the God will give a thought to us that we may not perish." And they said to one another, "Come, let us cast lots, that we may know on whose account this evil has come upon us." So they cast lots, and a lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, "Tell us on whose account this evil has come upon us. What is your occupation, and where do you come from? What is your country, and of what people are you?" And he said to them, "I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." Then the men were exceedingly afraid and said to him, "What is it that you have done?" For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord, because he told them. Then they said to him, "What shall we do that the sea may quiet down for us?" For the sea grew more and more tempestuous. He said to them, "Pick me up and hurl me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you. For I know it is because of me that this great tempest has come upon you." Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to get back to dry land, but they could not, for the sea grew more and more tempestuous against them. Therefore they called out to the Lord, "O Lord, let us not perish for this man's life, and lay not on us innocent blood. For you, O Lord, have done as it pleased you." So they picked up Jonah and hurled him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows. And the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. And the Lord spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah out upon the dry land. Here's Jonah, and I wanted to lay some groundwork here. First of all, Jonah in Hebrew means dove, which is a symbol of peace. And Amittai is Hebrew, which means true friend or faithful one. And I just think it's interesting that this was the name of Jonah's father, a true friend or a faithful one. And this is so far from how Jonah acts in this story. And Nineveh was the capital of the Assyrian Empire, and it was known for being cruel, a longtime enemy of Israel, and for idolatry. It was a large city that took 3 days to cross. There was a message that God gave to Jonah, and that was that in 40 days, God was going to destroy Nineveh because of their evil. Jonah did not want to do this. he was a prophet with a mission that he didn't want. God called him to go to Nineveh, a powerful and wicked city. But instead, Jonah chose to run as far as he could in the opposite direction. And it says he was running from the presence of the Lord. And he boarded a ship to Tarshish, trying to escape. But how can we flee from God who fills heaven and earth? We see in Psalm 139, 7 through 12, he says, "Where shall I go from your spirit? Or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light be about me be night. Even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is bright as the day, for darkness is as light with you." David meant this as a comfort, to know that there was nowhere that we could go to get away from God's presence. But Jonah would not have seen it that way, because he wanted to flee from the presence of God. But God did not let Jonah run without pursuit. He sent a storm, not to destroy Jonah, but to redirect him. The sailors cared about what was happening here, and they tried to find another way to get Jonah out away from the storm, and for them to get away from the storm, and they rowed as hard as they could. But not until they obeyed and threw Jonah over did the sea become peaceful. And what happened to these men? They feared God greatly and offered sacrifices to him and made vows. Even in Jonah's sin, God and his glory were made known to these people who did not know him. And they came to fear God. God intervenes even though Jonah sinned. He did not just let Jonah drown there, which he could have so easily done, but instead he had a large fish swallow Jonah to save him from drowning. And after 3 days and 3 nights, the fish vomited him on land. This is a God who is acting mercifully toward Jonah, and yet Jonah still does not see it. Reluctantly, after this, he does go and tell Nineveh what God had said, and they repent. Nineveh repents in sackcloth and ashes. And Jonah is angry. He declares in verse 4:2, "And he prayed to the Lord and said, O Lord, is not this what I said when I was yet in my country? That is why I made haste to flee from Tarshish. For I knew that you are a gracious God and merciful, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and relenting from disaster." This is the very reason why Jonah is even still alive, because of what he just declared here. And yet, he did not want God to show the same mercy to Nineveh. And we see here that the people of Nineveh actually responded better than Jonah. Jonah never repented. He only reluctantly obeyed. But the Ninevites repented in sackcloth and ashes and turned from their ways. But Jonah was angry, not because Nineveh rejected his message, but because they responded. This story is not just about Jonah's rebellion. It's about God's relentless compassion. Jonah ran, Nineveh rebelled, and the sailors were lost. God reached out to each one. None were deserving of God's mercy and his grace. But God extended mercy. This story shows God's compassion for all. Both Jonah and Nineveh had been disobedient. Both were offered redemption. Where have you boarded a boat in the wrong direction? Is there a part of your life where you're running from God's call? Know this: God's storms don't come to sink us, but to wake us. His fish don't come to punish, but to preserve. And his grace is big enough for prophets and pagans alike. God's desire is that none should perish. And sometimes we get hurt by people and we don't want to see God redeem them. And yet God's redemption, even for you in this position, only comes when you forgive and when you come to him and understand that all of us without Christ are lost in the same way. And to each one of us, God extends redemption. Wherever you are today, if you need redemption, there is nowhere that you have gone that is too far that God's redemption is not available for you. If there's somebody in your life that you need to forgive, if you're running from God, know that there's no place that you cannot run that's far enough that God will not pursue you. Not because he wants to punish you, but because he wants to redeem you and call you his own. My prayer for you today is that you will stop running and that you will turn to the one who loves you beyond anything anybody could love you. There's nobody that can love you more than your God. There's no hurt that you've experienced that God's healing touch cannot come and bring forth healing to those wounds. Will you know him today? Will you respond and turn to him? He's waiting for you. God bless.